Oh, I heard about them. The Ternary. But the last model I saw that came out of that lab was, I think it was a 1 billion parameter model. I think the largest was about 7, so they just came out with a 27 billion parameter model. Yeah, that is insane. 4 gigs for 27 billion parameters? Let's see. Yeah, no, I definitely need to make a video on that. Let's see. Today we're announcing Bonsai 27B, first 27B class model to run on a phone. It's a new multimodal flagship of the Bonsai family based on Qwen 3.6. Oh, okay, that was a really good model. I heard a lot about that. Brings some new capabilities here to local AI, multi-step reasoning, structured tool use. And this kind of reminds me of the HRM text model. Let me see. I'll just try to search that up real quick. Yeah, so this latest run's been going pretty fast, so it should finish up probably say like next, probably like 30 minutes, 45 minutes max. Yeah, so I've been using Fable 5 and it's been pretty good. The only thing is it just burns through tokens like way too fast. So it's very annoying when you hit your limits like so quickly. And then 5.6 Soul. So I've used that only a couple times. I don't really have enough experience with that model to like really give a definitive like review on it. The only thing I'll say about it is that I did hear that basically it was a little too, so like you can give it a task and it'll complete the task and do exactly what you want, but then it'll also delete certain sections of your code base too, which is super weird. And I can't really, yeah, I really don't want to do that. So if I were to use 5.6 Soul, it would have to be like Fable's the orchestrator, or like I guess the model that's supervising 5.6. And then in that sort of setup, that would make a whole lot of sense, right? So it'll review the changes that 5.6 made and then say, hey, you deleted X, Y, and Z, put that back in there. And that would be pretty much perfect. But I have to wait until Thursday until my limits reset. So in the meantime, I'll probably just do like some light work with 5.6 and just basically use it to review some of these training logs. That is fucking wild. Okay, XAI's Grok build CLI was uploading entire Git repositories to a Google Cloud bucket, private code bases and unredacted secrets included. The uploads quietly stopped via a hidden server-side flag, and XAI still has not said a word about scope retention or deletion. The scale is staggering. On a 12 gigabyte test repo, 5.1 gigabytes flew out the door to XAI's Grok code session traces bucket, while the actual coding task needed just 192 kilobytes. The tool grabbed whatever repository it ran in, not the files it needed. Yeah, not surprising at all. I mean, Grok's been behind in terms of like the LLM capability for a while, so they're pretty desperate to figure out some ways of closing the gap. And didn't Apple literally just sue OpenAI for them basically like stealing trade secrets? I don't remember exactly. It wasn't about the models though. It was more about the actual hardware. I gotta look into that because I'm pretty sure that happened like a couple days ago. Yeah, but what are they cutting the programs to like fund? Like what the hell? Let's reject that. Okay. Let's see. So quantum. Let me AI the space nuclear power. Oh, okay, so I guess they're just gonna give a bunch of those contracts out to their buddies then. Okay. Let's check that out. Lazarus AI. Probably drop a like. Yeah, I've been seeing this in my timeline for a couple hours already. Let me see what he has to say. I mean, yeah, that would be like pretty cool. Like the idea that like artificial general intelligence is only a couple of years away, but they've been saying this for a while now, you know. And I don't really see like any sort of like radically new architecture coming out from these big labs. But I mean, of course, they're never actually going to release that anyway. They're going to keep it from themselves, so it's just hard to say. You see, I spent my whole life working on AGI because I've always had a deep conviction that if built and deployed responsibly, it will prove to be one of the most beneficial and transformative technologies ever invented. Cannot be compared to standard technological breakthroughs, not even ones as consequential as the internet or mobile. It is much more akin to the discovery of electricity or fire. You know, more hype. If you stop to think about it, we've essentially found a way to make sand think. It's miraculous. Yeah, but what's the path to it though? You know, because I think it's pretty obvious that like LLMs have, I mean, they've made a ton of progress and they continue making progress, but I don't think that LLMs by themselves are going to reach AGI though. AI is already starting to deliver real-world benefits, but to realize its immense promise, we have to navigate this critical period of development. Thoughtfully, urgent action is needed to address risks that might arise as we get closer to AGI. We've already seen the challenges frontier models pose for cybersecurity, and other threats, including nuclear and bio risk, may soon emerge as capabilities continue to advance. I mean, that's the thing though, right? I mean, these models, like even in the earlier days, like the risk, even though the models weren't like nearly as capable as they are now, I think the risk would pretty much be higher considering that there was like way less sort of like filtering and that kind of like request refusals, that kind of thing. But now, I mean, pretty much with the capacity of these centers that have already been built out, these data centers, it's pretty simple to actually just monitor chats and make sure everyone's, you know, doing the right thing. So, always believe in the power of human ingenuity and creativity to solve any problem. Confident that mitigating this technical risk related to AI is a challenge we can collectively address. At the moment, we are locked in an extremely intense, multi-layered commercial and geopolitical race. While these competitive dynamics fuel rapid progress and accelerate the incredible upsides, advances on the frontier are outpacing our understanding of the technology. Right, so there's still no like unified or like underlying theory of deep learning, how it works exactly, how to like the way that it was explained a couple weeks ago was essentially it's almost as if you're trying to make a bed with a coat hanger, like basically sticking a coat hanger through a keyhole and you're trying to make a bed with that. Right? That's basically what deep learning is like right now, which is pretty insane. Like if we're able to get this much performance without really understanding how all these pieces fit together, like just imagine when that kind of eureka moment happens and we finally get whatever like unified theory, whatever the case may be. I mean, that's going to be massive, definitely. But again, it's just hard to say when that's going to happen, especially because a lot of the industry is just getting sucked into the statistical sort of pattern matching side of things, which again, it's gone pretty far, but I think other aspects need to be sort of looked into as well, you know? Okay, the rapid progress we're seeing in AI requires a new approach to testing frontier AI model capabilities that is dynamic, adaptable, and rigorous. U.S. is well positioned, given its economic and technical standing, to take the first step in developing such a framework. It could establish a new standards body modeled on a federally overseen public-private partnership or self-regulatory organization, much like the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, with a board that includes independent leading technical experts and open source representatives. Funding would need to be substantial and likely mostly come from industry in order to attract world-class technical talent and provide the necessary compute resources for large-scale testing. Right, so this is basically around the same line of thought as like Anthropic. So basically you need to have like this sort of deep learning high tower, you know, where you have like a board of like a handful of people who are sort of lording over the entire industry and sort of gaining access to certain models and that kind of thing. And China's probably going to do the same thing because I already heard that they're sort of thinking about getting access to some of the newer models. So it's really going to put a lot of pressure on open source, and depending on how the government sort of plays this, it's not looking too good for open source at all, you know? Because of course, like the government, along with these corporations, the number one priority, you know, of the government is to consolidate more money and more power in sort of like war against other governments. So let's see. The standards body will be responsible for developing assessment protocols and working with appropriate federal agencies and the U.S. national labs to conduct testing in areas relevant to national security. Model would qualify as frontier class if it meets certain thresholds on a set of benchmarks determined by the standards body and regularly updated to keep pace with evolving AI capabilities. Okay. Okay, model assessments should include rigorous scientific evaluations of capabilities in cybersecurity, biological threats, and other high-risk domains. Specific agentic AI tests could look for attempts to bypass safety guardrails or signs of deception and ensure best practices such as digitally watermarking AI-generated images and generating human-readable output tokens to understand model reasoning. That's pretty fair. But again, like these have already been in place for a while now. The cybersecurity, biological threats, like, yeah, definitely so. It would just be really reworking most of the foundations that have already been set. These evaluations will be regularly updated. It's quarterly to start, with outdated or saturated benchmarks being deprecated and replaced. Yeah, this is something I definitely want to see more of. Getting these benchmarks, like there's some sort of standardized way of generating them and evaluating them because, you know, basically every single time like a new model comes out, it's usually just like this super gamed setup to where it's like, oh yeah, you know, we have this new model. It takes out, you know, it dominates all the other models doing it. And you see, you know, their bar is higher than every other bar, and it's just the same thing. It's just nonsense, right? Because again, number one, obviously the company is going to set it up to where their model is going to look as if it's outcompeting other models. And number two, a lot of the benchmarks don't actually reflect the real world use cases or utility of the model themselves, right? Just because like a model ranks high on the benchmark doesn't mean that it's going to be like particularly useful, consistent, or just like a easy to use as a whole. AGI has the potential to be the ultimate tool for advancing science and medicine and to drive enormous productivity gains and economic growth. But in order to achieve this, we need to get to the technical foundations We need to get the technical foundations right by coordinating around the shared global framework, using the most rigorous scientific methods, and bringing the best minds together to work on the challenges we face. Even if we solve these hard technical challenges, there will be further complex economic and philosophical questions to tackle. What sorts of new economic models will be needed to help everyone thrive in a post-scarcity world? Yeah, that is kind of interesting though, because I mean, the way that I see it is that we've already been living in a post-scarcity world for a while now, for like a couple of years, like if not maybe even like 10, 15 years. Like the US has more than enough capacity to like feed everyone, to make sure that like everyone who's working in just like has a job like as a whole, like they have like adequate housing, that kind of thing, but they just don't want to do that, like the people in charge don't want to actually set that up. So it's just kind of weird that you see this sort of narrative being pushed that like, hey, like pretty soon we're gonna be in a post-scarcity world, and AI is gonna do all these different things. It's gonna benefit in terms of like healthcare, bring people out of poverty, this and that. But the thing is, we already had the technology to achieve this before then, you know. So I don't see how like an AGI system coming out, which I mean that would be cool, but at the same time, I just don't see how with the way that the current system is set up and the people, like more importantly, the people who are in charge of the current system, I just don't see that like that transition from, hey, you need a certain amount of money to do really anything in this society, to now we're in a post-scarcity society and we have like UBI or something. Because I even think that didn't Trump like pass a bill? I think that was like, oh my God, sometime maybe October or like December last year, and literally said like, hey, UBI is not going to happen for like 10 years at least. So yeah, I don't know about that. Let's see the comments. When new frontier models come out, they share a card with the model scores on a variety of benchmarks, knowledge, math, coding. I think these tests arose from the industry and are used because they add value for standard comparison. Why don't similar benchmarks exist for cyber, bio, nuclear? Any standards body would only apply to the West. No way China slows down development of anything to their benefit. Given that, why not just let the standards emerge? Generally don't know why. Say XAI doesn't have a benchmark. That Grok 4.x scored a 11.5 out of 100 on cyber threat capability, making it cyber safe. Well, that's the thing, right? Like, no one's slowing down AI development. Like when these sort of AI company CEOs are coming out and saying, "Hey, we need to like pause AI development. We need to slow it down." They're not saying slow it down for themselves. They're just saying like basically set up regulations so that they can block competing models in the United States. But even if like these foreign companies comply with that, like the Chinese companies, still like the actual American, like the US companies who are pushing for that, they would never slow down, like ever. Like they would just have that two-tiered system where they tell the foreign companies to slow down, to pump the brakes on what they're doing, and then the entire time in the background they're going to be like going even harder to like build up that advantage. And so it basically creates another weird situation to where they say things like, hey, we need to slow down AI progress because it's so dangerous, this and that. But in the back of our heads, we all know that they're not actually going to slow that down. They just mean slow it down for their competitors. And so the competitors always, they obviously know that too. So they're not going to slow down either. So it's just like this, yeah, like I don't know. It just comes down to leverage. Timeline and scale analogies are a bit optimistic in turning those evaluations into something reliable, especially for subtle things like deception or loss of control, is going to be much harder in practice than it sounds on paper. The US-led framework could still shape norms globally through market and compute leverage, but getting meaningful coordination across labs and countries in the middle of this race won't be easy. Laying out a specific adaptable proposal is useful. We need more of this kind of detailed thinking from people who actually understand the tech. Right, and that's like another thing, right? So where you have these sort of incentives sort of clashing with each other. So on the one hand, right, you have, companies who are raising, hundreds of billions of dollars from VCs, promising like, hey, in X time period, in a couple of years, we're going to have AGI. At the same time, though, they've been saying this for a couple of years already, and while they have been making progress in making these models better, more capable, that kind of thing, like ultimately, it's not really it's not really a massive difference, right? It's basically just these small little tweaks within an already established framework. And if you're a VC and you actually believe in the idea of like an AGI system, you're not really looking for, small tweaks within the existing framework. You're looking for sort of maybe not even alternatives, but at the very least a hybrid system that incorporates LLMs or something else that would give you those massive like 1500x, outsized returns on getting a better architecture and ultimately a much clearer path towards an AGI capable system. Yeah, that was pretty fast. So yeah, it's probably going to be done like the next 3 to 5 minutes.